Welcome back to another episode of Taking Every Thought Captive, where we are seeking to love the Lord our God with all of our mind. We're going to go ahead and start tonight with a look at our Bible study that we are doing on Monday nights here at the church. If you want to join us, we are meeting at 7 o'clock Monday nights right now. And this is basically what I would call bite-sized Bible study. Let's think about that. With bite-sized Bible study, I want to go over Genesis chapter 1. We covered that a few weeks ago, but I want to do that together as well. And then we're going to talk about a couple issues that I think are important for all of us as Christians to analyze, to think about in a way that glorifies the Lord. So let me grab two things real quick. So we have Genesis chapter 1. It says, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void, and darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters. Then God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, one day. Then God said, 'Let there be an expanse excuse me, in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters.' God made the expanse and separated the waters which were below the expanse from the waters which were above the expanse, and it was so. God called the expanse heaven, and there was evening and there was morning, a second day." Verse 9. "Then God said, 'Let the waters below the heavens be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear,' and it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the gathering of the waters he called seas, and God saw that it was good. Then God said, 'Let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees on the earth, bearing fruit after their kind, with seed in them,' and it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation," we're in verse 12, "plants yielding seed after their kind, and trees bearing fruit with seed in them after their kind. And God saw that it was good. There was evening, and there was morning, a third day." Verse 14. "Then God said, 'Let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth,' and it was so. God made the two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He made the stars also." Verse 17. "God placed them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to govern the day and the night, and to separate the light from the darkness, and God saw that it was good. There was evening, and there was morning, a fourth day." Verse 20. "Then God said, 'Let the waters teem with swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth in the open expanse of the heavens.' God created the sea monsters and every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarmed after their kind, and every winged bird after its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them, saying, 'Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth.' There was evening, and there was morning, a fifth day. Then God said, 'Let the earth bring forth living creatures after their kind, cattle and creeping things, and beasts of the earth after their kind,' and it was so. God made the beasts of the earth after their kind, and the cattle after their kind, and everything that creeps on the ground after its kind. And God saw that it was good." Verse 26. "Then God said, 'Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth.' God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, 'Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over every living thing that moves on the earth.' Then God said, 'Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the surface of all the earth, and every tree which has fruit yielding seed. It shall be food for you. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the sky, and to everything that moves on the earth, which has life, I have given every green plant for food. And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Now, I want to go back to verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Let's make that clear. When it says there, the heavens and the earth, it is using those two terms to make clear that God was the creator of all things. Without God, nothing was made. Not one thing. No stray molecule, no foreign planet, no alien life form. Nothing is made apart from the Lord. It says, the earth was formless and void, and the darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters. Now, there are some commentators who will take verses 1 and 2, and what they'll do is they'll kind of say that there's an indication of an early creation, and then verses 3 and following are God reworking creation, and then bringing forth humanity and all of those things. I understand that perspective in the text and where they're getting that idea from, but I think what is ending up happening most of the time is people are reading into the text. One of the absolute keys that we have to keep in mind is, who was this written to? When was it written? It was foretold, or I should say, it was written by and passed down by ancient Israelites until Moses himself wrote it down. And where is Moses? Where is Israel in the midst of this account being written down? Between Egypt and Canaan, between Ra and Baal, between pagan God and pagan God. And one of the things that this account is making clear is that there is not one part of creation that was done apart from the God of Israel. And that's the key. Often I think we use this text to talk to materialists, people who have a modern perspective of the world and maybe want to believe the world came about apart from any God. But for ancient Israel, this text is primarily a reminder, a teaching to them that God is the creator of all things. Now, with that in mind, some might say, well, because of that, therefore this is not a scientific textbook, therefore we shouldn't try to assume a young age of the earth or an old age of the earth. It simply functions as it is, as a retelling to Israel that their God is the God who created all things. Here's where you're going to run into a problem. The text says, there was evening and there was morning. There was evening and there was morning. There was evening and there was morning. So when you look at the text, and one of my encouragements as we begin to study the Bible together is that where it is possible, we take the plain reading of the text. And what I mean by that is where there is not sufficient evidence to believe that there is a metaphor in play. There are texts where there are metaphors in play, and you have to understand that to interpret it correctly. But where there isn't of necessity a metaphor, I would say be careful not to assume one. The text is suggesting a 6 literal day, 24-hour creation narrative. Now there again, you could maybe try to make an argument that there's millions of years between verse 2 and verse 3, but I think that's more done out of a need for assuming that modern evolutionary theory is correct. Now, let me see if I wanna go more into that. Let me talk about one more thing, and then I wanna get back to that about the structure of the text. So God is the creator of the lights. God is the creator of the space, the expanse. God is the creator of the water, the vegetation, the animals, the lights, the sun, the moon. God is the creator of all of the living creatures. All of these things, again, resound for an ancient Israelite: God, not Baal. God, not Asherah. God, not Ra. Elohim or Yahweh, not the pagan gods. And then we come, of course, to verse 26. God makes man. And the text says God makes man, and it says, let us make man in our image. Now, there are theologians, there are Bible scholars who would say that is a reference to God and the heavenly court. And heavenly court is the angels, all the different myriad of angels. The reason I would reject that interpretation is simply this: we are created in the image of God, right? We're not created in the image of angels. We're created in the image of God. Now, some would say, well, angels are also created in the image of God. Therefore, for that reason, it can say angels and man. Here's where I think Genesis is going to show that's not accurate. Later on, it is clear, while Adam is created in the image of God and called a son of God, Seth is in that lineage, but he is specifically called a son of Adam. Likewise, I don't think the scriptures are going to call us the image of God and mean Yahweh and the angels. Again, I understand the interpretation. I think it is better to understand this than as our being. Look, we already have reason for a plurality in the one God. Genesis 1, God created the heavens and the earth. Genesis 2, the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters. What do we have there? We have two entities, and yet only one God. Biblically, Trinitarians, we would teach, based on the testimony of Scripture, there is only one God who has eternally existed in three persons. And in the New Testament, it is made clear that Jesus, the Word, is the one whom all things are created through. So Genesis 1:26, we are created in the image of God. He then gives them a couple of commands. Number one, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it, rule over it. God created Adam and Eve for a purpose, to do the work that was necessary. Now, I had somebody ask in our Bible study a good question. Well, if we have Adam and Eve, then where did all the other men and women come from? And so it was asked, is it possible that there were other people God created, and then Adam and Eve were maybe the first two? And the reason why I would say no to the idea of God creating all the others is, number one, we all inherited Adam's sin according to the book of Romans, and therefore we all have one father in Adam. Obviously, if you're born again, you have a father in Jesus, a father in God. But secondly, the scriptures say that Adam was the first man, and that Eve is the mother of all living. If she's the mother of all living, then there aren't multiple men and women that God created. So we have that command to go forth, eat of all of that. And then, of course, God saw all that he made, and behold, it was very good. Very good does not mean without potential for fall. It means that when God created it, he created it without a flaw. So, where does the flaw come from? Where does sin come from? Well, to turn away from God is to turn toward sin. And that's what we believe the devil did. That's what we believe Adam and Eve did. They were created upright. They were created moral. But they were also created with the reality that if they turned from God, they would be not very good. I did say I wanted to get back into the 6 24-hour days. One of the things that I think really should help guide us in this is the language in the text. Evening and morning. That refrain is used again and again. And then we see in the book of Exodus a reminder that a 24-hour day period is used as the marker of the Sabbath. The ancient Israelites are to rest on the seventh day. Now, when we get to Genesis 2, there is at least one thing in Genesis 2 that could suggest a day as a long period of time. But I don't think you have to interpret it that way. Instead, again, the plain reading of the text suggests 6 24-hour days.